This is an SM Media production.
Things are gonna get better real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sit Down right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Delighted to be joined by a very special guest in this week's episode. I'm joined by a Motherwell legend and the Assistant Manager at Motherwell right now, Keith Lasley. Keith, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you on to the show. Thanks very much for doing this.
No problem at all. Pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. How you been?
Yeah, good. Obviously, a little break at this time of year as usual, and time to kind of reflect and spend some time with the family, which I think is always important, to be honest. In terms of even everything that's going on in the world, and after a long season, a very difficult season for many reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into, but. So, enjoying spending a little bit of time with the family, albeit, restricted in terms of, you're normally looking at passport out and maybe getting a wee holiday somewhere. But no, just spending some time at home, as I say, and I've got two young children, so, enjoying some family time.
Definitely. Obviously, it was a really difficult season, but Motherwell managed to stay in the league. They had a kind of very good entry season under Graham Alexander coming in. How did you feel the season went? Kind of from obviously when Stephen Robinson left and Graham came in, are you kind of pleased at how the season went in the end?
Yeah, listen, first and foremost, that our football club, it is about being in the Scottish Premiership. There's no doubt about that. It's our number one aim is to retain our status. Obviously we want to aim higher than that, and we always do aim higher than that. But it's not a given. You see, obviously, clubs like Kilmarnock, Hearts, Rangers, Dundee United, Dundee, so the list goes on, of clubs that unfortunately have found themselves, slipping out the top division. So it's an achievement in itself. As I say, we always aim higher, but to retain our status, I think is always really satisfying. And so the job that Graham has done since he's come in has been to do that. So I think that's to be applauded. It was a difficult season overall, obviously with the change of manager. With Stephen going, as somebody I've grown very close to, and absolutely love my time working alongside him, with some fantastic highs along the way. And it was sad to see him go, because I think he's certainly left the club in a far stronger place than when he found it, and done a fantastic job for the club. But ultimately, that's football. These things happen. He moves on, and Graham and Chris have come in, and, as I say, done a good job to keep the club up. And so a season of mixed emotions, as it can sometimes be at Motherwell. But as I said, it's good to know that we'll be going back to Premiership football next season.
Brilliant. We'll touch a bit on your early years before you kind of get started in football. What was your kind of early footballing heroes and memories? Who stood out to you when you were kind of growing up?
Probably a bit different to most young Scottish lads growing up. I probably followed English football a little bit more than Scottish football, and the reason for that really is I've got an English father, Scouser. A big, massive Liverpool fan. My two brothers, massive Liverpool fans, but I was actually the black sheep in the family. I was a big Everton fan. Right. Spent a lot of time as a kid down in Liverpool. All school holidays, Christmas holidays. So I spent a lot of time, and I get taken along to an Everton match at a very young age. Standing in the old Gladys Street terracing, and at that time, mid-80s, Everton were probably the best, if not one of the best teams, not just in England, but probably in Europe. A team full of great players. Andy Gray, Graham Sharp, Trevor Stephen, Gary Stevens, Neville Southall. The list goes on. So I would probably say that Everton team of the mid-80s was really the team that really fell in love with football and fell in love with Everton, really. So that was my kind of childhood, really. That was birthdays and Christmases was a new Everton kit, and that was just some fantastic memories. I going to watch that team play, really, you know, and so that was it. That was probably my earliest kind of football memories, football and heroes. Was you know, Howard Kendall's Everton.
Brilliant. Obviously, when did you kind of start playing football, and what were your kind of boys' club days like?
Yeah, I brought up in Erskine, so played for the local boys' clubs there. You know, Park Moor, my first boys' club team, and then on to Erskine Boys' Club. And really just playing with loads of friends, some great times, some really good players, you know, some other players that kind of flirted with professional football. But, you know, most of all, really enjoyable football upbringing, you know, and had some great times there. And ultimately on to Glenafar Thistle, and then, you know, got my chance then at a pretty late stage, you know, considering in these days how young boys are getting picked up. I mean, I never joined Motherwell or made it out of boys club football really till I was 18, 19 years old, so a lot later than you know, nowadays, as I say. So, but no, a really enjoyable time in boys club, and you know, still get some great you know, great friends that I played with. I still keep in touch with.
And how did the process to kind of getting scouted for Motherwell come about?
Quite simply, it was Billy Davies' involvement. Billy lived in Paisley, and he trained my boys club Glenafar a couple of nights a week when he was just getting into his coaching.
Right.
I think he was still playing at Motherwell at the time, but you know, just that changeover. I think he knew he was getting the job at Motherwell, and yeah, I'd left school to be an apprentice electrician. I was a kind of 6 months away from serving my time, and he remembered me from our training sessions, and he just asked me along for a trial, and you know, totally out of the blue, really. And I'd done that, and I managed to go and play a couple of kind of under-20s games, I think it was at the time, for our under-21s games, as under-21s league that was then. And I managed to score a couple of goals on my trial games, which was, I didn't keep up that scoring record when I joined, but no, so I managed to show up pretty well, and you know, at the end of that, offered a contract, and I had to, you know, finish. I wanted to finish out my apprenticeship first, so I managed to do that eventually. And then I joined Motherwell, yeah, and you know, I was 19, I think. So and then that was me from there. As you know, obviously moved into football, and you know, the rest is history, as they say. And
then obviously, yeah, your kind of youth days as well. And do you remember your debut for Motherwell?
I do, vividly. And in many ways, it's probably my most memorable match. It's something that I've only got 2 shirts up in my house, and one of them is my debut shirt, and one of them is my testimonial shirt. It's probably two shirts that mean the most to me, to be honest. And my debut shirt, just really for the fact that I never ever thought I would get to play professional football. You know, I really didn't. You know, as I say, I was a boy that left school to go and play an electrician, which I was very happy in, and you know, just a chance to go and play football. My debut was at Ibrox, you know, in front of 50,000 people. To run out for Motherwell was just something that I just never ever, you know, it was, you know, certainly pinched me stuff, you know, that it was actually happening. So, you know, it's one of my prized possessions, and I remember it so vividly, as I say, running out at Ibrox, and you know, we got beat 2-0 in the match, but you know, the team that we played that day against, you know, Barry Ferguson, Van Bronckhorst, Alberts, Claudio Reyna, you know, it was an education more than a game of football for me, to be honest. But you know, just a fantastic experience. And as I say, the jersey is actually one of the most treasured things that I've got, to be honest.
Brilliant. Who were the good characters in that dressing room when you're coming into that team?
Oh, loads of big characters, to be honest. And that was one of the reasons where I felt as if a bit of an inferiority complex in terms of actually feeling as if I deserved to be there, because I mean, we had guys like John Spencer, Andy Gorham, Jed Brannan, Lee McCulloch, you know, Don Goodman, you know, guys that had played international football, guys that had, you know, played in the Premiership in England for years. But so it was intimidating, I've got to say, actually, as a young guy getting in off the street almost. It was pretty intimidating to see these guys at close quarters. But in the same token, exciting, you know, to see these guys to train alongside them. It was just, you know, it was an absolute thrill, to be honest with you. And it actually opened my eyes to see the level, you know, that was required, to be honest. You know, as I say, coming from boys, pretty much boys club, straight into that environment, it was like, wow, right, I've got to do some serious training here and get myself up to a different level, because that was the level that these guys were training at every single day. So some big characters, and but great. Always remember them being very good with the young lads coming through, and we had a few young lads, obviously, coming through at that time.
Yeah.
They guys played a big role in certainly moulding us into the characters that we were.
Definitely. Obviously, Billy Davies left at the end of that season. You'd kind of established a good run in the team. Like, how much kind of an inspiration was Billy Davies to you, and what was your reaction when he left?
Listen, Billy was, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you. I wouldn't be, I've had the life that I've had so far, the career that I've had so far. He's just a guy that changed my life, to be honest with you. I don't think I can overestimate it, the impact that he had. So, I'll certainly be forever grateful to Billy for that opportunity that he gave me. And in terms of Billy moving on, I think it was, even for me that had not long been in football, I could tell that Billy was going to go into bigger and better things.
Yeah.
You could always tell that he had something different. You could always tell he had that drive, that knowledge, that he just knew he was always going to go on and go to a really high level in the game. So it was actually no surprise that he ended up moving into up to the level that he did eventually. So but as I said, somebody that I'll be forever grateful to be honest with you.
Definitely. How was your thoughts when Eric Black got the job?
Great, to be honest. It's probably, certainly looking back in my time at Motherwell, it's one of a wee bit of regret, tinge of regret that Eric never really got the chance to stay longer. Obviously, the club went through a really difficult time in his tenure in terms of the administration, and ultimately really led to Eric moving on. But again, had that gut feeling that he would have been a very good Motherwell manager. I know that he left and Terry came in, and Terry had a great time at the club, and again was a fantastic influence on myself and particularly the other young players around about me. But I just had that feeling, and still looking back on it, I do have the feeling that Eric and Terry, the partnership together, because they came into the club together, that partnership would have been a fantastic one for the football club. But as I say, unfortunately, events out with his control, took over, and it wasn't to be. But as I say, for the short period he was there, you could just tell he was a fantastic coach, and I felt would have been a fantastic fit.
Yeah, see, obviously you mentioned there about the situation the club were in at the time. Like, although it was a bad situation for the club, and a few players like Roberto Martinez had to move on and things like that, but did you feel in a way that kind of helped the likes of yourself, McFadden, Pearson, to kind of solidify a place in the team because of the kind of big players that were leaving?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt in that, to be honest. I don't think there's a doubt at all. I think you remember back then football was different then. You had probably had a full first team squad, then you would have almost like a reserve squad, then you would have a youth squad. Clubs used to carry a far bigger squad than we do now. Pretty much at Motherwell now we have a squad of players, and there's some young players that are integrated in that, and so it was different days back then. And so to actually have that pathway and navigate your way through that was very difficult. I think probably Stevie Hammell was the only one out of all of the younger lads at that team that really did that, cemented a place in the first team, and really did get all the way through without that. But in terms of the other guys, myself, Faddy, Stephen Pearson, David Clarkson, and these guys that come through kind of a little bit after Hammy, I think there's no doubt that without administration, certainly don't think it would have been as easy and as quick, certainly anyway. So yeah, it was a very difficult time for the football club, but I think out of that difficult time, I think, there's, as I say, there was some chinks of light with the emergence of some young players that would obviously go on to have good careers with the club.
Yeah, see, obviously administration, and then obviously Eric Black and Pat Niven left, obviously chief executives. Like, how difficult a situation was that to be around at the time?
It was very difficult. It was not just for the playing staff, but the staff as a whole. The club as a whole, and even as I said, although we were young players, and you're kind of shielded a little bit from it. You always felt as if it was the more experienced players that were exposed to it a little bit more, and the manager and everything like that. Obviously, with the job losses and things, you still get a sense of the peril that the club was in, and the well worth saving campaign, the fans, literally, bucket collections just to make sure that the club going forward. So you didn't feel as a young player, even that you knew the situation the club was in, you felt it. So it was difficult. It was, there's no doubt it was a difficult period. You always felt that we would get through it. Everybody would pull together when we get through it. But on the same token, you also knew that there would be some casualties and there would be some hurt along the way, unfortunately. So no, it was just a difficult period all in, and thankfully, out of that, I think has come a lot of good. Ultimately, now with fan ownership at the football club, that situation hopefully will never arise again, and the club is certainly on a consistent, sound footing going forward, which it certainly looks to be. So. Certainly a lot of lessons learned, and I think that's what we've got to try and do, is take the positives out of that, that situation. I think the club has done that, and as I say, find ourselves now in a far stronger position than we did then. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, one player that kind of was solidified Motherwell at that point was James McFadden. When did you realise he would go on and be as good as he's became?
It's hard to tell, really. You always felt with Faddy, you just knew he had something different. We obviously trained with him every day, and certainly from us, you look at likes of myself and Piero and maybe Hammy, a certain set of defender. We worked hard, we got the best out of our talent, but Faddy was probably the one that had a wee bit more maverick about him. Had that moment in him, of genius, if you like. To change a game on his own, so you always knew there was something there. Did you know for sure that would end up in him, ultimately going on to be a legend for Scotland and Motherwell, getting his move down to England? I don't think you ever know, but you certainly always knew there was that capability there. And as I say, we just had some great times on the training field. We'd stay behind for hours, trying free kicks and overhead kicks, and all these things, and the thing with Faddy, he was a street footballer. He was like, get the jumpers down and play football like we all did when we were kids, and he took that onto the training pitch, and some of the times we had on the training pitch and some of the fun that we had was just fantastic. So as I say, you always knew there was something there, something a bit different, and obviously Faddy went on to show that on the biggest stage.
Definitely. What about your kind of favourite memories of your first spell at Motherwell? Like, how good was it to kind of solidify a place in the team?
I think that's probably the best way of putting it. That was the most enjoyable thing, was actually solidifying a place. Because I say, when I first came in, when I first came into the club, I fully expected, to be back working in a building site in a year's time. I honestly did feel that kind of almost that imposter syndrome of, this is great, I'm going to have some fun, and then I'll be back, doing what I'm supposed to be doing out in a proper job. But, just slowly but surely, and, I managed to kind of push myself into the team, and really, I was so proud to actually finally push myself into being a regular in the team. It was such a big moment for me. As I said, it's something I never really expected. So that was so satisfying, and I never really wanted to leave the club as such, to be honest. It was the opportunity to go down south and play in the English Championship as it is now. It was actually the first season of the Championship. And again, it was something that I just never ever thought I would have the opportunity to do. I just never felt as if I was good enough to play at that level, to be perfectly honest. And so you get that opportunity again, was just really the only reason that I would ever considered leaving, really, and I took that opportunity, and in many ways it never quite worked out as well as I'd hoped football wise, but what it did do was certainly I came back to Motherwell a far better player and better person from moving away from home and everything that entails, and I think I wouldn't have had the second spell at Motherwell if I didn't have that opportunity to go down and try something different. So I always look at it that way. Although it was disappointing in the main, I still think it actually was the catalyst to me having, what I perceive as really my best period of my career, that second spell at Motherwell. So, I think all in all, it was a good move in that sense.
And then obviously you made the move to Plymouth and Bobby Williamson was a manager. When did you first kind of meet Bobby about going down there?
It was quite late, to be honest, that kind of year 04. And yeah, Bobby had obviously got the job. I think he got the job the last month of the season. I think Plymouth were just about to be promoted into the Championship. I think Paul Sturrock left there to go to Southampton, and Bobby got the manager's job, I think, for the last maybe 3 or 4 games, memory serves me right. And he managed to win, I think, one or 2 of his last 4 games to get him promoted into the Championship. And yeah, I mean, it was just from there, the usual, you get in contact and whether it'd be interested in going down. He obviously must have seen me from his time managing in Scotland. And as I said, it was a lot to consider. It came out of the blue, to be honest, wasn't something I was really thinking about. But as I say, that chance to go and play in the English Championship was just something I never thought I would get. And ultimately, it just swayed me. My wife got a good job just not far down in Weymouth in fashion, and we just, after weighing everything up, it just seemed right. And as I say, I decided to make that move.
Obviously, you went to the Championship, but how did you find the level? How did you find the standard of the Championship?
I found it more physical in terms of the athleticism of the players. That was something that I wouldn't say it shocked me, because I knew it was going to be a little bit of a step up, but it was kind of across the board how much more emphasis was put on the athleticism of the players, and as somebody that's not the biggest in the world, it was something I had to adapt to pretty quickly. In terms of the actual football, I mean, it was there was certainly some big teams. I mean, West Ham were in the league at the time, Leeds United, Sunderland, some big football clubs with some really top players in them. But I mean, the football side of it was something that I felt as if I couldn't adapt to. It was really, I just knew I had to adapt, athletically, if you like, spend more time in the gym, try and get a bit stronger. And it's something that, again, looking back to then going on to my second spell at Motherwell, it's certainly, again, I felt as if I come back fitter and stronger than I did when I left. So overall, I think that aspect of the game was something that I had to adapt to.
And then obviously, Bobby Williamson gets the sack, and after a poor start the next season, he's finished 17th in the first season, and Tony Pulis comes in. Like, what was your thoughts when Bobby left and Tony came in?
Yeah, listen, when a manager leaves and he's the guy that signs you, you're always, you're unsure. Is the new manager going to like me? What was his thoughts in the game? And does he know me? Does he even, what does he think of me? So it's always a little bit up in the air. And to be fair to Tony, I mean, I was round about the team, coming on off the bench now and again. But I knew pretty early on, and I've learned this coming into this side of it, players, the best way to be is be honest, even if the answer you're looking for is not the right one. So, and that's what Tony was. He was very honest with me in terms of, he didn't see me in his plans long term. But that was fine for me. That was, it was the clarity I needed to then, make the next move in my career. So, as I say, it never quite worked out. I ended up going on loan up to Blackpool with Simon Grayson there. But again, that was, the next move. Again, I learned moving on loan. I'd never moved on loan before. Moving down to League One, to play in League One, a new league I'd never played in. So there was, again, out of that negative, there was some positive things I could take. And, again, that's football. You just move on and try and make the most of the next experience.
Yeah. Who were some of the best players you played with down there?
Well, they're a pretty settled side. They came up. Plymouth we are a pretty settled side from the league below and into the Championship. There's some really good players there. There's a left back, Tony Capaldi, who went on to play for Northern Ireland internationally. David Norris, who then went on to play for Leeds United, Ipswich. So there was loads of really good quality English players that played. I hadn't heard of most of them, but when you get down there and you play alongside them, some really some good players and good friends as well. You got really good teammates, guys that I still keep in touch with now. So and as well as playing with, he was up against some top players, as I say, the clubs that were in the league at that time. I remember going to West Ham and I think playing against Teddy Sheringham, guys at that level, and many more. So it shows you the level of player that was operating in the league at that time. And again, it's probably go back to one of the main attractions for me going down there as such. So, but again, a great experience overall.
See, obviously the loan spell at Blackpool. Did you enjoy that as well?
Yeah, it was good. It was good, as I say. It's they were struggling at the time. I remember, and there's a wee bit of trouble, well documented trouble off the pitch. But in terms of the actual football on the pitch, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed working under Simon. I think it was his first job, Simon Grayson, and his first management job in football. And I really enjoyed it. We moved up to that area. We stayed in a lovely little place, Lytham, just along the road from Blackpool, and I really enjoyed my time there. We managed to stay in the division, which was great. And just getting back playing was the main thing for me. I just wanted to get back playing football, and Blackpool gave me the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable experience at the right time for me.
And then obviously you leave Plymouth at the end of that summer, and you train with Kilmarnock. Was there talk of a deal there?
Yeah, there was. Because I was left in a little bit of limbo, to be honest. There was talk of signing with Blackpool, but then there was a change of ownership there, and the contracts that had been offered were kind of taken off the table. And then so I decided to come back up the road, Jim Jeffries and Billy Brown were the managers at assistant manager at Kilmarnock, and they got in touch to ask if I wanted to go in and train, and which I did do. And I trained for a couple of weeks, and at the end of that, they did offer me a deal, and literally the day after, or the day, I think it may even have been the day of, that they offered me a deal. Motherwell got in contact as well. I think it was Stuart Robertson, the managing director at the time, had phoned me that evening as well to say that they'd like to speak to me in terms of bringing me back. So it all happened very quickly, and I was very grateful for the offer from Jim and Billy. So, two guys I've got a lot of time for in the game. But they were very understanding when I made the decision to go back to Motherwell. Once I heard of Motherwell's interest, again, it was just, it was a no-brainer for me, really. It was really, I jumped at the chance, to be perfectly honest. So, I had to phone Jim. It was a difficult phone call because, as I say, I really enjoyed my time training there. But, I think, as I say, Jim really understood my situation and, my want to go back to Motherwell. So, and that was it, really. Yeah, I signed with Motherwell back. I think it was well into the July, actually, that I actually ended up signing back, and I was delighted to do so.
And obviously Maurice Malpass was the manager at the time. Were you excited to go back and work with Maurice?
Yeah, definitely, because I'd obviously worked with Mo when he was assistant to Terry, so I knew him. I obviously still knew a lot of the players in the dressing room, and so yeah, I was really excited to go back, and I just couldn't wait to get started. It'd obviously been a stop-start couple of years, but I knew I was coming back a better player, and I was determined to come back and show that. So no, I was really excited, and that season ultimately never turned out great for the as a club. Obviously, Maurice ended up moving on at the end of that season, but for me coming back to the club, it was just great to be back, and I was delighted.
Yeah, you're playing really well the first few months of the season before you take your ACL in December. How hard was that to take after starting really well?
It was very hard because it was at Inverness away, and travelling down in a bus with an ACL injury is not the most fun, unfortunately. But yeah, that was difficult. That was probably my first kind of major injury, if you like. Probably my only, major injury, if you like, throughout my career. So, it was difficult in that regard. But, we had a fantastic physio in John Porteous, who'd been at the club a long, long time, and fantastic experience of rehabbing, these type injuries. So, he was fantastic for me. But yeah, I had, as I say, it was coming back to the club was a big high, but that season actually a few downs as well in terms of the injury, and as I say, then Morris having to move on at the end of that season. So it was a difficult season in many ways, but I was just delighted to be back at the club, and thankfully managed to recover from my injury full and well. And if anything, I think I came back even stronger again. After the rehab.
Obviously, when you return to the team, Mark McGhee gets a job. Like, were you excited to work with Mark McGhee when you heard he was coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously knew of Mark as the player, and knew he'd been a manager down south, but obviously didn't know him personally or anything like that. So that again, you go back to the Tony Pulis situation. You're never sure. You're never sure for that kind of initial period of trying to suss out whether. The manager likes you, or just try to do everything you can to impress him. But being on record before, that first season, that first 6 months in particular, Mark McGhee's tenure at Motherwell is certainly, as a team, the best football that I've been involved in. The best football I think I've seen a Motherwell team play. Obviously being involved in it as well. It was just a pleasure to be a part of, to be honest. And the big thing that Mark did was change our mentality. We obviously just avoided relegation the year before, and I can still vividly remember Mark coming into the dressing room in one of his first addresses to the players, and talking about finishing third place, and talking about going to Aberdeen and beating them, and going to Hearts and beating them, and competing against Old Firm. And we're sitting thinking, we've just nearly been relegated here, and this guy's coming in and talking about winning this and winning that. But it was just such a positive guy that it just it just rubbed off on us as a group. Still young, impressionable players. We just wanted to impress him. We wanted to do as best we can, and it was just a perfect match. And he recruited really well, brought some really good players into the club, and just everything seemed to click, and really quickly. And that was the thing, we went to Austria. We did, one of the hardest pre-seasons I think I've ever done. Really pushed us to the limit. But as I say, it just clicked. It worked. We were lucky with injuries. We never really get many injuries. And as I say, that first 6 months was just, it was just an absolute pleasure. And some of the games I can think back to, in particular one game at Easter Road, I think we went to Hibs, and I think we beat them 4-1 or 4-2, something like that. And I remember going to these places, and maybe places the previous season we'd just been delighted to go away with a draw. Yeah. We were expecting to go to these places and win, and win handsomely, and we actually started to do that. So it was so exciting to be a part of. And as I said, I look back in that year in particular as it was just great football to be a part of, and ultimately we ended up finishing third in qualifying for Europe.
Yeah, obviously at that time as well. Obviously, Phil O'Donnell passes away. How much did Phil mean to you as a friend and on the park? Like, just how important was it for the club to kind of get through that kind of tough time?
Yeah, I mean, we talked. We've had some. I've certainly experienced some tough times at the football club. We spoke about the administration, but I think Phil's passing is undoubtedly the toughest moment. I think Mark and the staff handled it superbly. The football club handled it superbly, and Phil was somebody that was more than a teammate. He was obviously the captain of the club. It was somebody that, even now in my role, obviously was lucky enough to go on and captain the club, and now to go into the coaching staff, was somebody certainly I refer back to in terms of the way he carried himself, and tried to be an example to the players and teammates round about him. And certainly somebody that I look, as I say, still look to for inspiration for that. A fantastic guy, still a fantastic player at that age as well, which can't be forgotten. And somebody will just never be forgotten at our club. There's just, that's just the way it is, and still somebody I think about regularly. And it's a sad situation at the time, but as I say, he still certainly lives with us for now and forever, really. And that will always be the case at our football club.
Definitely. You finished third that season and qualified for Europe for the first time in 13 years. How massive an achievement was that for Motherwell to do so well after, as you say, kind of fighting relegation for kind of most of your time at the club?
Well, I think that was it. That was probably the biggest part of it, is where we came from. You know, the journey from nearly getting out of the league to finishing third the next season, and in a really strong league. You know, it's you know, the old firm of Klein at that time. You know, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs. You know, so it's to come third in that league was just you know, a phenomenal achievement. So you know, it was so enjoyable. It's something that, you know, I don't think we'd qualified for Europe for a good number of years, and it was just so exciting. You know, even going back the next year, actually going to Europe, and again, something we never thought we would ever experience as players. You know, going to Nancy and your family all being over there, it's just unbelievable. So a real sense of achievement, actually. You know, it's just you know, in football, you know, you've got to enjoy the moments. You know, so many ups and downs, and you've really got to enjoy and embrace those moments. And something, even when I think back to that time now, it's still something that brings a smile to my face. Just that whole season, that you know, the times with those teammates and friends was just special, and something I think that season will be still regarded as special at the club for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Was it a disappointment the way the Nancy performance, or was it a disappointment not to kind of get through that game?
No, not really, to be honest. I mean, it's always a disappointment not to go through, but you know, we didn't deserve to go through. You know, I think further down in the European journeys, you know, some games we can point to and opportunities missed, if you like. We felt, certainly for me personally, I'm talking here, other people might have a different view, but that I feel have a little bit more regret about. I mean, you've got to remember that Nancy team was a good side. You know, they had some good players, and I think we were always going to have to be the very, very top of our game, and Nancy were probably going to have a couple of off days for us to get through that game. But listen, we gave ourselves a chance. We, you know, as we found out, and probably we got better as we've gone on in terms of managing the game at times, particularly the home games, and you know, when we lost away goals and things like that. So these are things that you learn along the way. But as an experience, as a whole, the two legs were just absolutely out of this world. And coming out, even over in Nancy, and seeing the Mallow fans all over that one end, filling that one end, it's just, you know, that's what your dreams are made of, if you like, you know. So again, it's disappointing not to go through, but the experience as a whole was great. And as I said, I think it did give us experience and a hunger really to get back in that. You know, that's the thing that it gives you. And you know, thankfully we managed to obviously do that in subsequent years.
Definitely. You finished 7th the following season, the 08-09 season. What was obviously you went from 3rd to 7th. Like, what was the kind of reasons for that? Do you remember?
No, listen, for us to achieve third is one thing. To stay in third is a whole new ball game. You know, as you've obviously get the clubs I mentioned before, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Dundee United, you know, that are gunning for you and you know, want to get above you. So it's, you know, it's not easy. And I think you know, retaining that kind of status in third, you know, we ultimately went on to do that later on, which again shows, I think, probably more of that achievement. We did manage to do it eventually. So it's always going to be difficult. Obviously, Mark, you know, left at the end of that second year. And I mean, we just never got to the heights that we did in the first year. You know, it was just that first year, just everything came together and, you know, worked for us. In the second year, you know, unfortunately, it just never, you know, and we just never quite hit the heights again. So, you know, 7th is certainly no disgrace, but, you know, it was always going to be compared to that season before. So, you know, we accept that and you know, and we just had to take what we could from that season and then move on again, you know.
And obviously, see, at that point, how much were you enjoying just being in the team every week and playing your football? Yeah,
well, again, I always felt, as I said, I came back a better player, and, you know, I think I was starting to show that by that point. You know, I was starting to show that I had now not just become a player, I was coming in to be a first team player, you know, one of the players that was regarded as, you know, a first 11 player, you know, and I think it probably took to that point in my Mallow career to start being seen as that. So that was a big achievement for me, you know. It was something that I wanted to try and do, is to really cement my place in, you know, the starting team. And as I say, the couple of years maybe back was probably the first time I'd managed to really do that on a consistent basis. So that was really a good spell, a kind of consolidation for me and at Motherwell, and I just wanted to obviously kick on from there and try and do as well as I can for the club.
And obviously, Matt McGhee goes to Aberdeen and Jim Gannon gets the job. Did you know much about him before he got in it? Before he came in?
No, not at all. Not at all. I know he knew he'd managed down south. I knew he'd got promoted, but we never knew anything really about him. And as I said, keep going back to it. You can the first couple of weeks you're coming in, you're trying to impress them, and you're never quite sure how it's going to go. And unfortunately for me this time, and not just me, but a number of the players that probably had been established in the team, it was he wanted to shake things up and change it around. But which again is football. That's the way it is. But it was frustrating for me on a personal level. I just you could tell straight away that. It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't happening, and that was a really frustrating period for me. Probably the most frustrating period in my Motherwell career. So it was difficult. Came close to leaving the club, very close. Which at that point was so frustrating because I felt as if I had had that couple of good years since I come back, and the thought of having to leave was difficult really for me to take because I never felt as if Jim gave me the chance to really show him what I could do and have a chance in the team, to be honest with you. So that was the most frustrating thing about it. But listen, it's in the past now. Thankfully, for me, I didn't have to leave, and Jim ended up moving on, and Craig and Archie came in, and I think probably that coincided with me probably the best period of my career. So as I said, it was a difficult period, but it probably opened up to my best period. So it's again ups and downs. You just got to take the rough with the smooth at times.
Yeah, Jim obviously brought in a few good young players like John Ruddy, Lucas Jukovic, Tom Haley was there as well. Did you see there was a good kind of young core as well? Kind of getting in with like yourself and Stephen Craig and Stevie Hammell.
Absolutely, and I think that's what. Ultimately, what Craig and Archie got out of the club, I think that's they married the two things together. I think Jim was very single-minded that he wanted it to be his own group, a younger group, and he was kind of hell bent on that being the case, which is again is fine. It's absolutely the manager's prerogative to do it his way, but. I think when Craig and Archie came in, I think what they done was get the best of both worlds because we did have some good young ones coming through. And to be fair to Jim, he recruited some really good players as well at the football club. And I think what Craig and Archie ultimately did was marry those two things together, marry those young players, that good recruitment that Jim had made, and with maybe some of the kind of established, more senior players that had maybe done well for the club in the past. So I think marrying all those things together, I think ultimately then went on to the success that the club had in those years through Craig and Archie, and then ultimately on to Stuart and then beyond. So yeah, it was an up and down period, but I think ultimately the club came out of it really strongly.
Yeah, how good were Craig and Archie to work with?
Fantastic, really good. Again. Back to the big influences in my Motherwell career, and I think Craig and Archie are probably right up there. You go back to Billy Davies right at the start, Terry and Mo, and then probably Craig and Archie are the next big influences. I came very close to leaving, and as soon as Craig came in, he kind of put my mind at ease and spoke to me almost instantly to say he wanted me to be a big part of things going forward, and that was so pleasing to hear. And then to work with Archie on a daily basis on the training pitch, somebody who worked at the very top of the game, obviously with Sir Alex Ferguson and Walter Smith, and achieved what he'd achieved. For him to come in and work with us and kind of coach us and guide us was great. And the combination of those two characters, Craig and Archie, was just perfect and exactly what the club needed at that time. And I think really, as I say, put the kind of foundations in place for what Stuart then took on in those next years.
10-11, Motherwell start really well, and then Craig Brown obviously resigns to go to Aberdeen. What was your reaction when you heard that Craig and Archie were leaving?
Yeah, disappointed. Disappointed. I think probably everybody in the dressing room was disappointed. I think we all had a great relationship with Craig, or certainly the vast majority. We're disappointed, but again, these things happen, and you're just hopeful that the next person coming in is carry on that work that Craig did. And thankfully for us, Stuart was the perfect guy to come in and do that. He was, could tell straight away that he was going to be a good fit for the club. And him alongside Kenny Black coming in as well was a perfect pair at the right time for the club again. And I think that showed in the results and achievements that we had. So yeah, it's football. It happens, that changeover. But as I say, I think Craig and Archie laid a lot of good foundations, and Stuart and Kenny just took that and made the most of them. And again, Stuart I think took us to another level again, and I think that was reflected in our league positions and in our European exploits.
And what was that for Stuart when he came in that he just what did Stuart do that just drove that club forward?
Just really, he's Stuart's a great man manager. He's a great personality. Just gets the best out of people, and again, it's one thing that I'm learning in the coaching side of it all the time is, your coaching and tactical knowledge is one thing, which Stuart and Kenny had, but building relationships, getting the best out of people, finding out what makes them tick, that is so important to run alongside that kind of technical knowledge, if you like. So, and Stuart was fantastic at that. He was just so good at getting the best out of what the players that were in that dressing room, harmonising the dressing room, building a real belief and togetherness. So he's the perfect character to build that, and he did that. We were such a good team spirit in that team. I think probably the best team spirit we had in that dressing room. We were so close, and again, I think that was probably the thing that drove us on to get the results that we did.
That's the 10-11 season, obviously the Scottish Cup run in the final against Celtic. What was the favourite highlights of the run, and then what was your memories of the final?
I think probably a couple of things really that season. On a personal level, a big highlight for me was scoring in the League Cup semi-final against Rangers. Again, a bit of a dream to not just play at Hampden, but even all the family there managed to score a goal at Hampden. Again, is something I'll always cherish, to be honest with you. Ultimately the result went against us. We felt unfortunate in that game. We felt as if we could have won that. We had chances close to the end, but wasn't to be. And then another big highlight was actually getting to the Scottish Cup final, the semi-final against St Johnstone, because semi-finals are so nerve-wracking. It's just you're so desperate to get to the final. It's probably before that St Johnstone game was probably certainly up there in terms of the games I've been nervous before, and it was a positive nerves, if you like, and you were just so desperate to get to the final. And if you remember, we were 3-0 up at half time, so it was a perfect way to settle the nerves. We managed to score goals early, so that was just to know that you were going to play in a Scottish Cup final again. Stuff of dreams for you as a young boy. So that was a real highlight. I mean, the final itself was obviously a disappointment. We just never quite got going in the final, to be honest with you. And obviously against a decent Celtic side, we knew we had to be our best, and we just never put a performance together. So that was a disappointment thing. I mean, the whole build up to the final and being involved in a Scottish Cup final was fantastic, but you go there to win, and unfortunately we did manage to do that.
Obviously, the season after that's the 11-12 season. Would you say that was your kind of best personal season in your career, like how well you were playing at that point?
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's no doubt. As I say, probably as a team, that Mark McGhee 07 season is probably the best football that I've been involved in. But in a strictly personal note, that kind of second year under Stuart, I think is, I'd taken on the captaincy, which was a massive thing for me. And
was that the kind of biggest honour of your career?
Yeah, no doubt. I still vividly remember getting a phone call from Stuart and Craig's moved on. Craig's had retired, and Stuart asked me if I'd take on the responsibility, and obviously I accepted instantly, and it's just such a big honour for me. And again, I think took me on to another level. It's maybe not for everybody in terms of captaincy and things like that, but it just felt right for me. I was desperate to be the captain. I would loved being the captain. I just love everything that goes with it, and I think it got the best out of me in the playing terms. It really, again, took me to that level of belonging, of really feeling as if I was a big part of the club, and that was just great for me. I just loved that, and as I say, yeah, probably went on coincided with my best football. I think, albeit into my 30s at that point, but it coincided with the best period of my career, no doubt.
Yeah, you qualified for the Champions League at the end of that season. You played Panathinaikos. Like, how big a privilege was that to play in that competition?
Yeah, again, you go back to that thing of playing in a cup final, and first of all, playing for Motherwell, playing in a cup final. Now you're getting to play, play Europa League. Now you're getting to play in a Champions League qualifier. So, that whole qualification for it. I think that year before we had to win 3 games in a week to actually come second above Aberdeen. Obviously, ultimately playing against Aberdeen on that last day. It's just everything that came together that last second of that game, and. Unfortunately, I've never had the chance to lift a trophy for Motherwell, but that 30 seconds at Pittodrie, I'm sure must feel pretty close to what it must feel like, because it felt like winning a cup. It felt like proper sense of achievement, and it was just amazing, the scenes, and ultimately off the back of that, the chance to then go and play in a Champions League qualifier against such a big name like Panathinaikos. You go and play in the Olympic Stadium in Athens again. My family was there, and leading the team out as the captain in a Champions League qualifier at Fir Park when the place is packed. It's something you just never ever thought you'd get the chance to do. So such a proud moment, and something I look back on so fondly. And again, I don't think the scoreline looks.
Were they a good side?
They were a good side, aye. I mean, they were a good side, and they deserve to go through. But I think the scoreline was very harsh on us, to be honest with you. Again, that harsh lesson of European football in terms of managing the game maybe at the right time and things like that. But I don't think we were that far away from them. But the experience as a whole was fantastic, and again, something I'll always cherish.
And obviously, the 2 seasons after that, you finished second in the league. Like, where does that achievement rank for Motherwell to finish second in the SPL?
I think it's got to be right up there. I do, honestly do. And obviously, it sounds a bit giving yourself a pat in the back because you were involved in it. But I think when you think back, we spoke about the McGhee era, we finished 3rd, and then the next season you finished 7th. So to actually show that consistency it's just not easy, to do. And I think time will show that. I think time will continue to show what an achievement that was for that group of players. With that, budget, if you like, competing against what we're competing against, and to show that consistency was remarkable. So, again, I'm just proud to have played a part in that. And as I say, I think time will show that it was, that was a decent achievement to do that over that period.
Who were the kind of big players in that team that were, apart from yourself, that were responsible for the achievements of that team?
I suppose there was, some constants in that. Like Stevie Hammell, who'd obviously been there, he'd been away and come back to the club. Who, certainly the most consistent player that I'd played alongside, and I think his record shows that. I think he's second. I think the all-time appearance record for the club, and. So we had a real good mix of experienced players, some really good recruitment, like so guys like Darren Randolph coming up from down south, and Chris Porter, and guys like that, and then some younger ones coming in, Jamie Murphy coming in, and guys like that coming through. Young Sean Hutchison coming through. So it was a really good mix of some of our own boys coming in, some really good recruitment from England, and then that core of guys, that experienced guys that had been there through that time consistently. So it was just always a good blend, and I think that was probably the key to our success, a real consistency in that mix, if you like.
Yeah. The following season, 14-15, what kind of changed? When did you realise it was kind of things were going wrong?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't actually know, to be honest. I couldn't probably pinpoint one moment, if you like. You could always feel there was a bit of pressure building on Stuart. And
why was that though? Because obviously he'd done, and outside looking in, he'd done brilliant to obviously take that club where it went.
Yeah, I think so, but I think probably Stuart's, if you ask him himself, I think there maybe comes a point where you maybe think, what else can you do as a manager? I think managers, for good or for bad, certainly seem to have a shelf life, if you like. I think, Sir Alex Ferguson's and Arsene Wenger's of this world are very, very few and far between, where you're at a football club for longer than 3, 4, 5 years certainly. And I think Stuart maybe just felt that was the case, and I know from speaking to him, he always wanted the best for the club, and he maybe just felt it was the right time for both parties that to part ways eventually. So, but in terms of one moment, no, I couldn't probably pick out a moment, but as I say, you did get that feeling that there was just that little feeling that it was going to become just a natural separation, and that ultimately that proved to be the case.
Were you surprised when he resigned?
Yeah, I was saddened, to be honest. I didn't want it to happen. We'd all built such a great bond with the manager and Kenny, and so we were certainly sad as a group of players to see him go. But in the same token, you were understanding, I think, of why it was happening. And you just had to get on with it and move on and see what the next kind of chapter would bring moving forward.
Ian Barakoff gets the job. What was your reaction when you heard he was coming in, and how was he?
Well, again, you're never sure. I didn't really know Ian at all. But come in and it certainly wasn't plain sailing, if you like. He ultimately ended up in the playoff games with Rangers, which I'm sure we'll speak about. But Ian came in and brought in Stephen Robinson, who would obviously go on to have a big influence in the club as well. Yeah. But ultimately Ian kept us up. He kept us through got us through the playoff games and retained our status in the league, which was so important to the football club. But yeah, it was, we moved on from that, and as I said, Stephen Robinson coming to the club as well, who would then go on to have, as I said before, have a big influence in the club moving forward. Mm-hmm.
That obviously he's finished 11th, and you stay up through the playoffs against Rangers. How big an achievement was that for the club to beat Rangers and stay in the league?
Yeah, massive. Probably I think back to the administration time and in terms of the ramifications of the club and financially, and it almost felt a little bit like that. Obviously it's not administration, but that there's big implications. If you lose the game, there's going to be some big, unfortunately probably have to be some big changes at the club. So it was almost a similar atmosphere around about the club, particularly for the guys that had been there for a long time. But Ian and Stephen, I think protected us from that as much as they could in terms of trying to, just keep us focused on the game, keep us focused on the job at hand, and that was simply to try and beat Rangers over 2 legs. And I remember we worked tactically very hard in the 2 games, and I think Ian and Stephen have got to take a lot of credit for that. The game plan that we went to Ibrox with, I think worked to an absolute T. In terms
definitely.
of restricting Rangers and hitting them in the counter attack. And you see the goals that we scored. It couldn't have worked any better. I think we had Lionel and Marvin on each wing, and the game plan was to be very rigid in our shape and try and break through these 2 channels, if you like, and it worked in both games really. So while it was a difficult and one of probably my least enjoyable experiences overall in terms of everything that surrounded the games and the build up to the games, it was really rewarding and satisfying after the event to know that you kept your status. And I think particularly that first game at Ibrox, again, the memories I take away from that are at the full-time whistle and going over to the fans in the corner, and again my family in amongst that, and singing Twist and Shout, and just to know that you've not done the job, but you've given yourself such a great, that was a great performance, a great tactical performance. Just to know that you'd gone and done a job, you'd executed a plan, and that part of it was so satisfying.
And did you know, obviously, like you mentioned there about why did you get kind of so nervous about those two games? Was it just because of the factor of what would happen if you didn't win it?
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it, to be honest. And not so much the first game, funnily enough, thinking back and think about it sometimes. It was actually the second game, and actually in some ways because we'd got ourselves a lead, it was almost that feeling of, right, we can only throw this away now.
Yeah.
And that's not a great place to be sometimes, because it can bring kind of negative mindset, and you're just get out to protect. You don't know whether to stick or twist, and in the second leg I think we pretty much stuck, because I remember being pretty much camped in our own half and Rangers having a lot of possession early on in that game, and I think we had a couple of chances and missed them, but I think that's the most nervous I've been before a football match, is definitely that second leg against Rangers, because you were just longing for the final whistle, to be honest. I mean, I remember looking at the scoreboard, and I think I looked in, it was like 11 minutes or something, and I'm looking at the scoreboard wishing it away, which is not a good place to be honest. You should be just out playing the game, but it was just so much at stake. You were just wishing time away, and I don't remember us playing particularly great. I know on paper the result looks great, but I think we played much better in the first leg, to be honest with you. Ultimately we go on to score, and it looks really comfortable in the end, but certainly for the first half of that game, or majority of that game in the second leg, I don't think we actually played well at all. It was just pretty much protect mode and protect that lead, and which fortunately we managed to do. So, but no, a really nerve-wracking time. And at the end, that final whistle, it really was relief. It was, I think, enjoyment maybe came later in the evening when you could sit, have a beer, and just maybe enjoy the moment. But on the final whistle, apart from the fisticuffs that was going on amongst the players, it really was just a sense of relief, to be honest, that we managed to stay up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your testimonial at the end of that summer against Bolton, how big an honour was that, and what's your memories of that day?
I mean, not just the day, the year as a whole. It was, first of all, it was a privilege to be awarded a testimonial. A great year, some of great events along the way. Had a great committee that looked after it in terms of a golf day and a dinner and different race nights around about the club and the town. So it was just a great year for me and my family, to be honest with you, and it was a real humbling experience, to be honest. The reception that I got at each of these events, ultimately culminating in the game against Bolton. So as I said right at the start, it's 2 shirts I've got up, and my one, the testimonials along with my debut is the other one. So it's something that I'll always cherish. My connection with the club is it's really defined my life, to be honest. The football club, and to have that chance to have a testimonial is something that just I'll be forever grateful for, and something I'll look back on so fondly. And
obviously after that, Ian Barraclough leaves and Mark McGhee comes back. Like, what was your reaction when that happened?
Yeah, excited, to be honest, because obviously the experience that we'd had with Mark before, it was just, I think everybody is still connected with the club that had been through his first period, where really excited about him coming back, because what we'd achieved in that first time and the type of football we'd played. So it was real excitement, and it was first manager I'd had in a while that I knew. He knew me, I knew him on a personal level. So that was exciting, and it was an exciting appointment. I don't think we ever really hit the heights that we did in that first period, but I think we still played for some good football at times, and as I say right at the start, it was great to see him back at the club.
And obviously the 16-17 season, did you know that would be your last season?
No, I didn't, to be honest. I had a clause in my contract. If I played so many games, I had another year left. So actually, when I made the decision to retire, I was actually knocking back another year's playing contract, which is a big decision. As somebody never ever took for granted playing professional football. To have the decision to give up a year's contract was a big one, but the opportunity that Stephen Robinson gave me move on to the first team staff. You know, I'd been helping out at under 17 level for some time and under 20 level with Crags, and I'd really enjoyed it. You know, I'd got the coaching bug. I'd been doing my coaching badges all throughout my career, really, and I'd finished my pro license. So I felt it was a natural step for me, something that I was passionate about, and to get the opportunity to do it at a club, you know, I loved at Motherwell, was just too big an opportunity to turn down. So I still felt as if I had another year in me, to be honest. I think I was 37, but I still felt fit and certainly could have contributed at least for another year. But as I say, the opportunity to come into this coaching side of things was just too good an opportunity to turn down.
And how do you look back on your playing career as a whole?
I'm just grateful, really. It's probably the first word that comes to mind, that I had the opportunity to really become an established player. As I said, it was something that I never thought I'd get the chance to do. To become a kind of recognised figure at Motherwell and build a really solid career at Motherwell is just so pleasing for me. You know, it's something I never thought I'd get the chance to do, and to have played, you know, a part and some really good times for the football club is just been such a privilege, to be honest with you, and something that I just look back on it so fondly, and you know, something that I can hopefully share with the kids and look back in some memories with them. You know, they're both big Motherwell fans now, and yeah, it's just, as I say, it's been a privilege to be a professional footballer and been captain of Motherwell and as I said, played in European football, played in cup finals. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Brilliant. See, obviously becoming the assistant manager, how hard did you find it to adapt between, like, obviously being coming from the dressing room to now being the kind of man between the dressing room, kind of the players and the manager? How did you find that to adapt?
Yeah, it did take a bit of adapting. It was something I got obviously accepted the job in the summer, and I wanted to make a conscious effort of having a gap, you know, which I think is important, to be honest with you. So when I came back, I'm still obviously very close with, you know, the majority of the dressing room, to be honest. You know, although there was a lot of recruitment went on that summer, there was a big turnaround. You know, there was still, you know, a lot of the dressing room I was very close with. But, you know, I wanted to make sure there was a buffer. Although I was assistant manager, and you almost are still a little bit, you know, that buffer between the manager and the dressing room. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just still one of the lads. I wanted to make sure that, you know, if I'm going into this role, I'm fully committed to being, you know, the assistant manager and being, you know, on the coaching staff. So, you know, that was a conscious effort, which, you know, I think worked out. You know, I think, you know, you just force yourself to be a bit more distant from the players. But the players understood that. I think they understood and respected the new role that I had. And to be honest, I just was that focused on doing the best in the job and doing the best for the manager that I just kind of got on with it and got on with my job. And I think naturally, you know, these relationships just evolved.
Definitely. Obviously, the fact you've reached the final with the Scottish and League Cups in the 17-18 season against Celtic. What was do you feel you could have done better in those games? But how big an achievement was it to get there? Again,
a big achievement. You know, I think you know, it's not very often that, you know, obviously St Johnstone have went on to go on better this year and win the cups, which is just an unbelievable achievement. You know, it's just. But I think for us, it was still it was a great achievement. I think to get to the 2 cup finals it's not an easy thing to do, you know. So to get there was, you know, great, and I think the teams we beat along the way as well. You know, beating Aberdeen in the semi, one of them, beating Rangers in the other semi-final, beating Hearts in the quarter-final. You know, so it wasn't easy runs that we were getting there. You know, we had to overcome some really top opposition. So I think that was satisfying as well, that we really earned a chance to get to the 2 finals. And ultimately, you know, remember we're probably coming up against one of the most successful Celtic teams in recent history, you know, under Brendan Rodgers. So it was never going to be easy. But I mean, out of the 2 finals, I think the League Cup final was the one that we look and think that just got away from us. We played well in the game. We prepared really well for the game. We had a game plan, you know, executed that really well, we felt, on the day. And just a couple of things went against us, you know, that we felt, you know, maybe just tipped the balance in the game. And we felt as if we were really close to a very good team, you know. So that was probably the most disappointing out of the 2. because we felt as if we were right in the game for the large parts of it, and a couple of things maybe fell away, but we'd had a real chance of lifting that cup. So, but no, I mean, I don't think you can take away from the achievement of getting there, and as a coach to do that, to be involved at a coaching level or getting to cup finals was brilliant. It really was, and being involved in that, building a game plan for big games, and so to be involved in that at a coaching level was really good and a fantastic experience for me. It's certainly something that I'll take forward experience-wise in terms of that proper build-up for a big game. So it was great experience for myself.
Definitely. Two players who you've obviously coached are obviously David Turnbull made his Scotland debut last night. He's in the Euro squad. He's doing brilliant at Celtic. Alan Campbell as well is another one I think could be going to have a terrific career. Like, how good were those two at Motherwell, and do you think they could go on and do really well in their careers?
Yeah, no doubt, both of them. For different reasons, really. I mean, David is, I think, naturally. I mean, we spoke about Faddy earlier on. Maybe similar little traits of genius in them, but in terms of young players that I've seen, certainly my coaching career, but throughout at Motherwell, I think he's the best that I've seen technically. He's different, David. He's got something different. He's got a calmness in possession under pressure, which it's just not in our culture, the Scottish culture, to have that, to be perfectly honest. And you just don't see it a lot. And I think he's destined for the top, David. I really do. You've got to remember, he's still a young player. He's been through a big injury as well. I think he's still got a lot of developing to do, and I think you're seeing that happen now. Well, obviously you saw it happen at Motherwell, but I think you're seeing that progress to Celtic. Now you see him playing with Scotland last night. I think he's going to go to the very top. I think he's got that capability. And then with Alan's a player even at 14, 15, that he was probably a borderline in terms of actually even coming through into the first team. But what he's done since then is just his attitude. I say David's probably the most naturally gifted player. Alan is he's got the best attitude that I've ever seen in any player ever I've played with or coached. He is just, his mentality to his profession is just second to none. And that's the thing that will drive Alan to his absolute limit. And again, I think he's going to go on to really good things, Alan. He's so driven. He's just getting better. He's improving all the time, and an absolute pleasure to coach. And somebody that's not just physically, improving, but mentally. Somebody that thinks about the game tactically, takes information in, can compute information, asks questions. He's just the full package in that sense. So, absolute coach's dream. I think anybody that's worked with Alan would probably back that up. And as I say, somebody that I think is going to get the absolute best out of himself. And to me, that's going to see him in good stead to go into bigger and better things.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, how much did you enjoy working under Stephen Robinson?
Very much so. Again, certainly very grateful for him giving me the opportunity to move into coaching, and loved it. I think he managed the club, so well in terms of, I think he had 2 or 3 jobs to do at the club. I think he had 2 or 3 overhauls of the squad, and in terms of the way he recruited and traded players and brought young players through their academy into the first team, and so many aspects of the job that for me looking in was great to learn from somebody like that, and it was just great to be a part of his coaching team, really, and certainly learned a lot from him, and somebody that I'm sure will be back in football very, very soon, and it's just a pleasure to be part of his coaching team, and as I say, somebody I'll be thankful for giving me the chance, and to be a part of it.
Brilliant. Obviously, when he left, you took the job on an interim basis. How was that experience?
Yeah, it was difficult, to be honest. It was a difficult period whenever a manager, my first experience obviously being in the coaching side of it, when a manager moves on. And very similar point Stuart McCall that we spoke about earlier, that it just came to the point that it was a natural, parting of ways, if you like. And it was difficult, you're obviously then in that period, the club asked me to kind of take the club forward in that couple of weeks period. which I was obviously more than happy to do. But it's a difficult period. You've got to manage a dressing room where the players are most of the players, I think, are disappointed that managers moved on. You've got to try and galvanise that dressing room in a short period of time, and get them ready for games. So it was difficult. It was a difficult period. But again, something that personally I learned from, a really, really good learning experience for myself, and just try to do the best that you can in that short period of time, to help the club move forward.
And obviously Graham gets a job. Were you expecting to stay on? Like, how did they assure you were kind of staying with the club? Like,
yeah, I mean, you're never quite sure. Again, my first experience of a new manager coming in a coaching capacity, but I had some good positive discussions with Graham when he came in initially. And there's always going to be that natural period of getting to know people and getting to know me getting to know Graham and Chris, and vice versa. So that was natural. But just what you try and do is show your ability as a coach and show your loyalty to the way that he wants to come in and see things and play the game. And your job is to try and help him as much as he can settle in as quickly as he can. So that was my main focus. And thankfully Graham came in and he's had a good influence in terms of keeping the club, galvanising the dressing room, and really keeping the club in the division, which was first and foremost what he was brought in to do. Mm-hmm. Now hopefully we've got a period of pre-season now that can really put his mark on it and recruit the players that we need moving forward, and hopefully get off to a good start next season. So but yeah, it's all new experience for me, but it's something that I'm learning from all the time, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Brilliant. Are you hoping to go into management at some point in the future?
Yeah, hopefully eventually. It's certainly something that I've always felt that I get be capable of doing. And I'm just trying to get as much experience as I can before that, I make that move, really. I mean, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. I don't think you can do that in football. I think it's you've got to wait for that opportunity to arise. But I think one day, certainly, I would like to do it at some point. But as I say, I'm happy in my role at the moment. I'm just trying to gain as much experience as I can and learn the job and be the best coach I can be, first and foremost, on a daily basis. And then, you just see where that takes you.
Definitely. Are you all right closing with some quick fire questions, Keith?
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. Who would you say was the best player you ever played with in your career?
Oh, that's a big one. I mean, I think for natural talent, it's probably got to be Faddy. Just for that natural ability, as I say. But I think overall, over the piece, I would probably say Stevie Hammell in terms of his consistency of performance. I'd probably go for Stevie. Brilliant. Best player you ever played against? Oh, it's a tough one. Again, there's so many European players that you played against that I think were fantastic. I mentioned my period down in England. Guys like Teddy Sheringham and that stand out. But I think for me, I always say, that range, I go back to my debut against Rangers, and I think you'd probably pick any of that Rangers midfield. A young Barry Ferguson, Van Bronckhorst, Alberts, these guys. I always go back to them, and they're probably as a young player playing against them. I think they were the guys that I thought, oof, this is a different level. So I'd probably say a young Barry Ferguson. Brilliant. Favourite away ground you've played at? Oh, there's a few there as well. I think the Olympic Stadium in Athens, I think that was pretty special, just as I say, in a Champions League qualifier as a captain, leading the team out there, that's always up there. I think either side of the Old Firm, I think, is always a great place to go and play. And Hampden, I think I've got to put Hampden in there. It's got its detractors, Hampden, but as a player, there's not much more special than walking out of Hampden, particularly at a cup final or a semi-final, a big game. Favourite film and TV show? Oh, favourite film and TV show? That's a hard one. That is a difficult one. It's usually kids' films I'm going to see now. It's probably, but it's not very often I go and see a movie, to be honest with you. The TV show, I'll go for the thick of it. I'm a bit of a Malcolm Tucker fan. I'm into my politics. I like a bit of politics. So a bit of politics and comedy put together is right on my street. So I'll go for that for my TV show. In terms of my film, I'm trying to think. I actually can't think of a film. I'm struggling for a movie. That's a terrible answer, I know, but I'll stick with my TV show. I'll put you right back to me on the movie.
Brilliant. Favourite dressing room story?
Oh, favourite dressing room story? Oh, God. I think there's so many, a few different pranks if you like. I remember Paul Quinn changing somebody's number plates around and them not realising, getting pulled over by the police. And he'd been out and take a screwdriver and putting plates on somebody's car. I remember him bringing a clamp into training as well one day, and clamping one of the boys while we went to training one day as well. So Paul Quinn was always up to a few things. So that was an interesting time when he was in the dressing room.
Brilliant. Best friend in football?
Probably still the boys for our early days at Motherwell, still on a wee group chat, like Stevie Hammell, Faddy, David Clarkson, Piero. I'd probably say they four are probably still my kind of closest pals in football. Brilliant.
Final question, best manager you've ever played under?
Oh, that's a tough one. I can't pick out one, to be honest with you. I've got to pick, we spoke about so many influences. I've got to mention Billy, the biggest influence. I've probably got to mention Craig Brown, big influence in turning my career around. Mark McGhee, best football I played, and Stuart McCall is in terms of me playing my best football. So I honestly couldn't pick one out of them. I think it's probably an amalgamation of all the managers, and Terry Butcher as well. Yeah. Terry Butcher, who was fantastic. So I think there's if you could put all the managers and kind of crush them into one, that would probably be the perfect manager for me.
Brilliant. Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed.
Not a problem. Enjoyed it.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Real soon. Yeah, I'ma just do me, you just do you. I swear it's gonna get better real soon. Don't let anyone tell you what you should do. I got a clear view. We're gonna make it soon. Just keep pushing through.